Let me begin with the goal and the main thesis of this talk. The Anthropocene represents a new phase in the life of both humankind and the Earth, when natural forces and human forces become intertwined, so that the future of one determines the future of the other. Scientists tell us that last summer was the hottest summer in the Northern Hemisphere in 2,000 years. September alone was 0.5 degrees Celsius hotter than the prior records, not average. We hear scientists struggling to find words for the staggering rate of change of the climate. They say unnerving, mind-boggling, or absolutely gobsmackingly bananas. Good luck translating that one. So. Human choices are having devastating effects on ecosystems around the world. Greenhouse gases are at their highest levels in 4 million years. Average temperatures are higher than they've been since the Stone Age. Ecosystems are rapidly being destroyed by climate change and human encroachment, and species are going extinct at a faster rate than in hundreds of thousands of years. This is the first time in history that humanity has faced a truly global challenge of this kind. To respond appropriately, two things are required. First, we have to grasp what it means to have the whole world in our hands, almost literally. And then we have to learn to think and feel in new ways in order to act appropriately. What is the root cause of this crisis? I'd like to propose the answer here. Our species has focused on itself. It has disregarded the harmony of nature and humanity, leading to the instability of ecosystems across the planet and the imminent threat of collapse for many. If disharmony is the root of environmental collapse, then reestablishing harmony is the solution. I'd like to suggest that the foundation of ecological civilization is harmony. Actually, 5 harmonies are the building blocks of an ecological civilization. So briefly about the Anthropocene, this was called the epoch, the new period when human beings became the dominant influence on the planet. We're up there in the Holocene, and the argument was that the next epoch after that was the Anthropocene. We dated this back roughly to the years after 1950, when 8 nations exploded nuclear warheads. More than 2,000 hydrogen bombs were exploded by these countries, mostly by the US. A single warhead, this one, that was detonated on an atoll in the Pacific Marshall Islands, 1952, produced a blast 700 times more powerful than the bomb that the US dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. And now trace elements from these explosions can be found on the highest mountains in the Himalayas and at the deepest spots of the ocean. We have transformed the planet as a whole. We were excited when we found the perfect geological record of the changes in the atmosphere in Crawford Lake, just in Canada, just west of Toronto. And you see the core where they were able to bring up from below, and it would show for every year, both seasons, the nature, the chemical composition of the atmosphere, so that we could see the transformation that humans gradually made. And then in the years since about 1945, virtually vertical transformation of the contents of our own atmosphere. And there's a picture of the core sample, which is the best existing records of the history of the atmosphere for almost 1,000 years. We call this the Great Acceleration, this period when the human activities began to overwhelm Earth's operating systems, population, industry, and then plastics, nuclear tests, nitrogen-based fertilizers, species depletions, and the rest. But is the Anthropocene an epoch, as some argued, or an event? There's no question that the Anthropocene has arrived, but what is it and what does it mean? The Union of Geological Scientists correctly votes that the Anthropocene is not an epoch. Instead, it's an extended event of imbalance in the modern period. This crisis is not something that happened to humanity, like a geological phenomenon. It's a human-caused disharmony threatening the Earth's biosphere as a whole. This disharmony is human species becoming out of balance with the rest of the biosphere. It's not a problem with the Earth. It's a misalignment of humanity with the biosphere on which we depend. And as one reader to Raymond Zhong's New York Times article wrote, "We don't know how our end will come, but we seem to be trying our hardest to meet it as soon as we possibly can." It's like we're accelerating and heading for a wall, and instead of slowing down, we're going faster and faster and faster. Carbon dioxide emissions the rate was still climbing last year in 2023. And as S.T. Jackson rightly notes, and this is maybe the most important single data point to remember of all that I've covered, the Anthropocene discussion focuses attention on a fundamental observation. Humanity and nature are deeply intertwined. Nature will persist in the absence of humanity, but humanity cannot exist without nature. It is indeed, as David Corton says, the time for a great turning from empire to earth community. Now, harmony is a fundamental notion in traditional Eastern, for example, Chinese thought, and in traditional Western philosophies. I think we need to analyze it into 5 harmonies, and with this, my talk will be over. So the 5 fundamental harmonies between nature and humanity. Number 1, the harmony of human health and thriving with planetary health and thriving. These two are inseparable. As Whitney noted in an article a few years ago, the concept of planetary health is based on the understanding that human health and human civilization depend on flourishing natural systems and the wise stewardship of those systems. But natural systems are being degraded to an extent unprecedented in human history. Dr. Snow has beautifully brought out the way that the two healths, these two kinds of health, cannot even be separated. At a deeper vision, they are inseparable. They are manifestations of the same phenomenon, not different phenomena. Number 2, the harmony of culture and nature. Humans have defined human culture as separate and above nature. And I think Professor Kang, in the point that he emphasizes at the end of his talk, the union of goodness and beauty, of ethics and aesthetics, is crucial for understanding the depth and the nature of that harmony philosophically. In our period, Rin says, the grand challenges are encountered in their aftermath, so afterwards. We can no longer categorically segregate culture from nature, but we must face the fact that these spheres are inescapably mingled. And Jacek and Pickering put it beautifully, this task requires a new capacity, the capacity to rethink what nature means, to embody that capacity in institutions, and third, to use that capacity to shape environmental policies. What must they do? They must cultivate the conditions for flourishing into the future rather than returning to the past. The harmony of part and whole, philosophically, is actually the most basic of the 5 that I have presented. As one reader said, humans with their big brains and big egos have a fatal flaw. We have escaped natural interaction with the earth. We've insulated ourselves as a part from the very natural process of interdependency with nature that historically balanced populations. We took the part and we pulled ourselves out as if we were separable, a little piece that you could put anywhere. But we are a living, breathing component of the body, which is the biosphere as a whole. So many things follow from this. As another reader said, if we consider the entire planet as one big living organism, this species, our species, seems to be like a cancer that's killing the body. That's the mistake of thinking that we are separate, when in fact the truth is we're apart. And so many disharmonies or harmonies are connected with this. We have to imagine the harmony of microsystem and macrosystem, individual and community, community with an ecosystem or region, a city with its surrounding nature, a nation with other nations, and finally of individual creativity and the common good. In the United States, freedom is seen as the ultimate, but to claim freedom and to kill the very environment that makes you free is absurd. 2 more. The harmony of receiving and giving. That represents the primary change for humanity. Nature is dying at our hands, says a commentator on Mr. Tong's article. Our beautiful blue earth is like it is in the intensive care unit, mostly past the point of being saved due to the stubborn failure of humans to admit that we are the most destructive force to hit the planet since the asteroid destroyed the dinosaurs. It's not hard to see the answer. Let's imagine, as Kim Pullman has done, a golden rule for the earth, like this universal golden rule, moral, ethical principle. Treat others and the planet as we'd wish to be treated. Wisdom passed down from cultures across centuries can be our rule. The circular economy is nothing other than an expression of the golden rule. Take the raw materials, use them, and return them to the earth. And finally, in closing, the harmony between humanity and the biosphere. That's the harmony with all living things. And this is really the key point of the talk. I summarize it from Fred Magdorf in his famous article on the capitalist alienation of nature. An ecological or harmonious civilization, a really sustainable one, has to have certain basic characteristics, and I think every one of these is accurate. It needs to stop economic growth after basic human needs are satisfied. It will need to promote, encourage, and reward the positive human traits of cooperation, sharing, empathy, and reciprocity. Those are crucial 4 qualities. And it must operate with respect for and care for the environment, locally, regionally, and globally. That is a thesis statement, I think, for our entire conference. Time to read a little bit of thing? What do I have, 1 minute? Okay, good, we can do it easily. Okay, I just want to pull out again those most important human characteristics for a harmonious society: cooperation, sharing, empathy, and altruism, and close with Joanna Macy's amazing essay, The Great Turning. I want her words to echo in our ears as we complete our work. The Great Turning is a name for the essential adventure for a Whiteheadian. That's a great phrase. The essential adventure of our time, the shift from the industrial growth society to life-sustaining civilization. I'll just read the first sentence. A revolution is underway because we're realizing that our needs can be met without destroying the world. The Great Turning is a reality that's gaining momentum. And to see this clears our vision and summons our courage. I won't go through them, but here are the three dimensions of the great turning. Actions to slow the damage to Earth and its beings. Analysis of the structural causes and the creation of structural alternatives, as previous speakers have mentioned. And finally, of course, the shift in consciousness. And let's give Joanna Macy the last word, and with that I'm done. These structural alternatives cannot take root and survive without deeply ingrained values to sustain them. Again, Professor Zhang and I would share that. They must mirror what we want and how we relate to Earth and each other. They require, in other words, a profound shift in our very perception of reality. And that shift is happening now, both as cognitive revolution and as spiritual awakening. Shri Shri, thank you very much.